Lizzie Gutteridge from the Shawm Shop, and today I want to tell you about our Spanish alto shawms. There are two of these, two different sizes, one is in G and one in F. Now these were developed by John Hanchett as a partner to the Spanish soprano. And if you haven't seen my video on the Spanish soprano, I recommend you go and have a look at that as well, because in that I explained the origins of this Spanish model of shawm, where they came from, what they're based on. It's all based on one soprano instrument in the Brussels Museum. So if you want to know about that, look up the soprano video. What John did was to make some larger instruments in the same style, so with this narrow profile, small bell, and without a key. So our Renaissance alto, which I've also done a video on, has a key at the bottom, which closes the 7th finger hole. And that makes it easier to reach, but it also makes the instrument much more complicated, and it's also got this flared bell on the end, so it's made out of a larger piece of wood. The Spanish alto is very, very simple in its construction. It does still come apart. It's got a separate bell piece that you can take in and out, so you don't have to go around with this long thing in your luggage. But it doesn't have that larger, wider bell on it, and it doesn't have the key. And that means that it's ever so slightly harder to hold up and to cover that note. So I'm a little over 5'10" or 1m80, and for me this is just about doable. The F instrument I used to play quite regularly, but for this, covering the hole there is something that I now would only do for 10 or 15 minutes at a time. Having said that, we have recently come up with a solution to this problem, which is to put a bent crook on the top of your F Spanish alto shawm, a bit like the tenor, so that you can play it in front of you. It's almost a cor anglais kind of an angle, and that takes a lot of the pressure off that hand, because you're not having to reach away and get the fingers on the holes, and also for holding the weight up. If you are strong enough to play horizontally with the straight crook, it can look really impressive. And if you want to hang a banner from your shawm, that is something that people are really going to notice. So of course you could even order one of each, and you could swap depending what you're doing on a particular day. They behave exactly the same, musically speaking. The Spanish alto is the only shawm in the series that comes with a thumb hole as standard. You can have one without a thumb hole if you want, but you have to request that specially. The reason for that is simply that because it's that much bigger and harder to get the fingers on and off in a hurry, it gives you a bit more nimbleness around the top. So if this is the C instrument, there is a G that you can play with your thumb off, just like you would on an F recorder, or you can play the 6-finger G if you're moving up onto the rest of the second register. The F instrument has a slightly darker, mellower sound than the G, and it has the same fingerings, more or less, as treble or bass recorder or the bottom register of a clarinet. So they're fingerings that a lot of people will know already. G fingerings are a little bit more specialist, but originally alto shawms were in G rather than F. So that actually is the sound, the slightly brighter sound, that's closer to what might have been heard back in the day. In fact, all these instruments, as I said on my Renaissance alto video, would have been a semitone higher than modern pitch as well, originally. Ours are all at 440. Okay, I'll play you a little bit on each instrument, starting with the F, and I'm going to use this new bent crook of ours on that, and then I'll play the same tune on the G, so you can hear the difference between the two.